Good evening. Happy Wednesday. I am Nicole Everett, the host of Conversations with Nicole. And today I am hosting an episode of Let's Talk. Let's Talk is a talk show that is created by Talethia Edwards and Marcus Nicolas, but I am acting as facilitator tonight. And we are talking about early childhood education, early childhood education. So I have a dynamic panel with me tonight. This is an interactive live discussion. So we definitely want to hear from you with your comments, with your questions around the early learning space. There is an initiative on the ballot of the Leon County elections, which is taking place now. We're in the early voting cycle of the general elections around the Children's Services Council. So we're going to be talking about early childhood and the Children's Services Council. And again, definitely want to get your questions and comments around this topic. So without further ado, I am going to briefly introduce the panel, but also have them come on and introduce themselves a little bit more in detail. So my first panelist is Miss Brooke Brunner with Leon County Schools. Welcome, Brooke.
Hi, thank you, Nicole.
Our pleasure. So tell the folks a little bit about you and your experience in the early learning space.
Well, I've had the opportunity to serve Leon County Schools children for 20 years. This year marks my 20th year with Leon County Schools. I started working in our extended day programs and moved into my teaching career, where I taught students with exceptional student education services. And then I had the opportunity to serve as an administrator in both the elementary level as well as the secondary level. Okay. And so most recently I've moved in to the position of Director of Early Childhood with Leon County Schools. Okay. And I am super passionate about it and very excited to work in this space.
Awesome. Well, welcome as a panelist tonight. Excited to talk to you about this topic. All right, next up, I'm going to bring on my LT37 classmate, Mr. Daryl James with the Capital Area Community Action Agency. Welcome, Daryl.
Hello, thank you, Nicole, for having me. I'm Daryl James, as Nicole just informed you. I am the Family and Community Engagement Manager with Capital Area Community Action Agency. That's a long title. I work with the Head Start program. I have about a total of 20 years in the area of early learning. I've done everything from owned and operated my own family child care center here in Leon County on the south side of town. And now I am involved with Head Start, operating as the manager for the Family Services Division, and enjoying doing that, providing quality child care services to the children in Leon County. And I have a stint with Leon County Schools, working with out at Lively with the exceptional education students in the transition program as well.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Well, welcome, and look forward to this conversation. All right. Next up is Miss Liz Murphy with the Early Learning ELC of the Big Bend. Liz.
Hi, Nicole. Hi, Brooke. Hi, Darrell. Thank you guys for having me. My name is Elizabeth Murphy, and I'm the CEO for the Early Learning Coalition of the Big Bend. I have been in this role since January, and I'm also very excited about this opportunity to provide this service within the Big Bend region. We provide childcare tuition assistance to over 6,000 children in the Big Bend region, as well as we have a little bit over 240 childcare providers within our network. So I'm excited to be here tonight with you guys to have this very important discussion about early learning.
Awesome. Well, again, welcome. Thank you. And excited to have you as a panelist to discuss this Very important topic. And so last but certainly not least, Virginia Dailey, also known as Ginny Dailey, the First Lady of Tallahassee and a volunteer for this Children's Services Council campaign. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you, Nicole. And hello to the other panelists. I am so honored to be included in this conversation. Unlike our other panelists, I am not an expert in this field. I am a parent, so I have been through the early learning side as a parent, and I'm a volunteer with our church preschool. And so we have learned a lot about accreditation and the process and the behind the scenes of early learning through that process. And Liz Murphy, I have to give a shout out to the ELC because the ELC has been fantastic for our church preschool, Faith Presbyterian Church preschool, getting us qualified for VPK funding, school readiness funding, Step Up for Students, and the Gardner scholarships. And so that's been a huge blessing in terms of our ability to provide scholarships to students in the community for that kind of early learning. But the real reason I think that Nicole chose me to be involved is because I'm a volunteer with the Children's Services Council, which is, as she mentioned, an initiative that's on all of our ballots in Leon County. Election day is Tuesday, the very last day to vote. You can vote in early voting now, but the last day is Tuesday, less than a week away. And we are trying to get the word out about what a CSC is and how it can support the children and families in Leon County, including in particular for this conversation, early learning.
Absolutely. Welcome. So before we dive into the CSC, I want to talk more about early childhood education in terms of the importance of it, but also quality ratings, improvement systems, that sort of thing. And I think the first place I'd like to start is neighborhood factors as it relates to early childhood. So I'm going to just kind of put that out there in terms of if any one of you believe that neighborhoods differ in the quality of early childhood education, and if so, what differences would do exist as it relates to that? Let's see. Anybody want to tackle that?
Well, Nicole, I can just start out by sharing our most recent Flickrs data, which is our kindergarten readiness data. That tells us currently that 67% of our non-Title I schools are showing that students have the pre-academic skills to be ready for kindergarten, while only 33% of our Title I students are showing that they are ready for kindergarten. So that's just one piece of data. And again, that really only captures pre-academic skills. That does not give us any measurement on social emotional learning, which I think that all of us would agree is as important or more important than those pre-academic skills when it comes to early learning. So I'm sure that the other panelists would have maybe more to say about that as well.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think the educational, the educational credentials and a lot of the administrative personnel from neighborhood to neighborhood differ, causing the difference in the scores for the children. And I think that's directly related to children from different neighborhoods require different items. Some are coming to school every day dealing with trauma. Some are coming to school every day, they haven't eaten. So it's a lot of needs that need to be met before you can actually teach the individual child. And I think that's a direct result of the neighborhood the children are in, not to mention the fact of the family engagement, the family involvement from one side of town to the other. So it looks totally different for different reasons.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I don't know if we even think about it in those terms, in terms of, some of the resources the educational background of, the workers and whatnot. And, I from what I understand, and Ginny, maybe we can dive into this a little bit later. Part of what the Children's Services Council potentially can do is help with some of that, the quality of the child care that is being provided, or the early learning that's being provided at these facilities. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct, Nicole. In other counties that have a CSC, one of the things that some of those counties have focused on is improving the quality of child care centers in their counties. Florida is one of not very many states anymore that has no statewide standards for early learning and preschool education. We have what's called the Gold Seal Accreditation, and that gives a child care center a little bit of extra money if they meet that requirement. But I think many people would agree that even those Gold Seal accreditation standards are pretty low. It's a pretty low bar, and we would want better for our children. And we would expect more of our child care centers, preschools, and daycares. And so one of the things that a CSC can do is to focus on that. And I'll just tell the story. And I can't remember now which county it was, because they all run together in my head. It might have been St. Lucie County, but I don't remember. But what they did was the CSC paid for the accreditation process for daycare centers and childcare and preschool centers in their community. And what they found was it sort of had all these knock-on benefits, because everybody who went through the accreditation process then got more money from their early learning coalition for their school readiness students and their Step Up for students, all of that state funded funding for childcare. But also they found that the schools that went through that accreditation process had dramatically lower transition, turnover in their staff. They were able to keep their staff for longer. And there was one other thing that they found. I think it was higher kindergarten readiness scores. Okay. I think that was what it was. And so there were 3 metrics where that wasn't even what the CSC was targeting, but it was like unintended positive consequences, knock-on benefits, because if you improve the quality of the childcare, then you're helping them be not just academically ready for kindergarten, but also the social and emotional readiness for kindergarten. So yes, absolutely. A Children's Services Council is a perfect tool to try to bring up those that standard across the board, so that a child who goes to Faith Presbyterian preschool is going to have the same level of care as a child who's going to any other preschool. Rita Brown at the Brownsville Prep preschool does an amazing job in Frenchtown, and so it's the idea would be to level the playing field and make sure everyone has high standards for our kids.
Absolutely. So what are some of the challenges in raising those qualification standards in early childhood sites? And maybe, I don't know, Liz or Brooke or Daryl, maybe you can speak to that.
So I'll go ahead and chime in. So one of the challenges that we have seen is the limited financial resources to be able to pay our childcare teachers. If you leave it up to me, they would get paid $1 million, because it's a job that is worthy of that. And so for a very long time, they were considered babysitters. They're not babysitters; they're teachers. Yeah. And so they should receive teacher, type of pay. However, when we look at our reimbursement rate, or what our child care centers are reimbursed, because they are on our reimbursement contract with us. So they don't get the money up front. They get it once they submit their attendance with us. And so they are they are doing the best that they can with the limited resource. So I think that, being able to provide more financial resources for them will allow for them to do more, because I have seen them do great work with a little. And so it's I can only imagine what they could do with more resources. So I do believe that, like you just mentioned, the neighborhood, it does impact. But one thing I can reassure you is that the childcare industry is the same as far as the passion, and people's desire to want to take care of the children and provide them the resources that they can. But that doesn't always mean that they all have equitable resources to be able to do that. So I just wanted to chime in and say that.
Okay, no, I appreciate that.
And along those same lines of what Liz shared, I think that there's something to be said about that pay has a value effect with our teachers. And so that goes a long way. And I agree with Liz 100%. They deserve the world. They deserve to be paid $1 million for the amount of heart that they put into the work that they're doing with these children. And one thing that we're seeing more and more is that post-secondary universities are they're losing their early childhood programs, and so we're finding it harder and harder to find teachers that are certified teachers with a 4-year degree that have actually gone through an early childhood program. And I'll tell you, there is a distinct difference between elementary ed education and really early childhood development. And so with those programs dwindling, it's becoming harder and harder to hire staff.
Wow. Let me ask you this. Why is that? Do we have any, do we know any rhyme or reason why the secondary programs are being eliminated?
It's my understanding that Florida State dissolved their program several years ago because they didn't have the enrollment. The interest wasn't there. And that may, and I'm just speculating, all be related to, the value that we're placing on these teachers that are really highly sought after. So I think that there's a lot to be said there.
Yeah, for sure. What do you all believe are some opportunities that are being missed in the community as it relates to early childhood programs, practices, or systems of reform?
Access. I really implore our families and parents to access opportunities. I think that oftentimes for our working families, it's extremely difficult to access affordable childcare, right? So when our families, do land a great job, they need that childcare right away. And so often our quality programs have a long waiting list. And let's be honest, childcare is a fortune. So I think that is accessibility and affordability is a real barrier.
Yeah. It is. Liz?
I would have to agree with Brooke on that. It definitely is the affordability piece as well as access piece. There was a time where ELC did not have a wait list, and that was prior to COVID. But we didn't have a wait list. But we also experienced some difficulties with parents understanding the urgency of trying to be good stewardess of record keeping, so that when they could come into the office to determine their eligibility or to continue that eligibility, they didn't have what they needed. And so there were additional programs that Thankfully, during the pandemic, we've been able to make available to our families, but we're still finding difficulties with them either knowing how to access these resources. So we use the voice of our child care providers. They help us because they see these families day in and day out. So they are the voice to connect them to these resources. And so whenever we want to push information out, we use them so that way they can educate their families on what to bring in when they come into our office or when they can do it from their homes. So that way they can expedite the process as much as possible, because, you know, there is a lot that they have to go through to become eligible. And once they become eligible, they have to maintain that eligibility, because childcare does cost more than tuition for college. So, you know, it's definitely not affordable. But then we also experience the fact that our childcare providers, they still have overhead, they have costs, they have all of these different things that they have to provide in order to continue to maintain their business. And so it definitely, it impacts both the providers who are providing the service, as well as the families that need the service.
Okay. And Darrel, what are you seeing over in the Head Start space?
Well, in the Head Start space, it's a tad bit different. There's not technically a charge for childcare, but it's not free. Okay, I'll explain that a little bit.
Okay.
It takes a lot of participation from the parents, and a lot of times we're not getting that. A lot of the parents that families that come our way are the ones who definitely can't afford the traditional childcare setting, even if they are coming on a sliding scale fee. Sometimes that $2 a day to 80 cents a day are too much for them to pay, especially with no transportation. So what we're usually dealing with Head Start is we provide services for children ages 3 to 5. A lot of the children we receive, it's their first time in childcare because they cannot afford those childcare services from 0 to 3. Early Head Start is there, but I often say Head Start is the best kept secret because a lot of people are just not aware of it, how much we push it and put it into the communities. But I mean, there's over 4,000 kids that need services in Leon County. Head Start, we only have 378. And then we're also over in Jefferson County and we're over in Franklin County. So that takes away some of those slots. So we get the families coming in, but that socioeconomic statue in there that I mean, families not having transportation, families not able to take their children to the doctors to get that physical and that immunization. Families who can't read and write and don't understand the importance of childcare is what we deal with. And before we can even get into raising our scores in our classrooms, we have to give our children love each day. So we see a totally different. I mean, we deal with trauma, and then if you go back to the resources with from the different neighborhood to neighborhood, the ability to pay staff, what they deserve just isn't there. We can go back to accreditation. You need to be able to provide insurance for your employees, and that accreditation helps out to give you a little bit more money to pay them. But it's just very, very hard to get all those resources and, in the childcare that we provide, because we're dealing with limited dollars and, we have so many slots.
Wow. Whew, it's a lot. I'm feeling the heaviness of it all. Let me just pause. And for those who may be just watching us, this is the Early Childhood Education or Early Childhood Learning edition of Let's Talk. I'm serving as moderator, and Brooke Brunner of the Leon County Schools, Liz Murphy of the ELC of the Big Bend, and Daryl James of Capital Area Community Action Agency. And Ginny Dailey was on. Hopefully she can pop back on. She actually was coming to us live from her car. She has soccer mom duty tonight. So, parenting never stops, right? So again, and this is also an interactive live, so we definitely want your comments, your questions around this topic of early learning, early childhood learning, and we're delving into the Children's Services Council. So again, thank you all for being here and sharing your knowledge and expertise. This is a great conversation. So you know, Darrel, you said a lot. I'm still kind of like marinating on all of what goes on in the Head Start space. I gotta just pause a moment there and, you know, ask you, you know, are there, you said 4,000 students that need service potentially in Leon County, and only about 300 and some less than 400 that are being served. You know, how do we mitigate some of that? I don't even know what to ask about that. I'm feeling a little defeated. So help me out here, please.
Now we
How do
still
we?
have Brooke. We still have
We
Brooke
have
with Leon
Brooke.
County Schools, and we have
Okay.
the private child care centers to help us out. But still, I don't believe we have space for those for the children that we that need that service from us. And of course, Liz don't have the financial ability to provide for all the families that need that sliding ski fee paid. And then you have to take into account your families who just technically can't afford it, and they're going to be at grandma's house until they're 3 or until they're lucky enough to get that Head Start slot. That's just the way it is. We just have to find a better way in the community to provide that service to the children that so desperately needs it.
So we need more funding, correct?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there's definitely more children than there are seats available in quality early learning programs. In Leon County Schools, we serve approximately 950 students ages 3 to age 5, but our primary focus is servicing our exceptional student education students. So we only offer about 205 VPK slots. So there, like I said, there's definitely more children than there are seats available to serve these children.
Gotcha. So
we have to remember that VPK slot is only 3 hours. So that's the school day. Yeah, it's only 3 hours, and you have to be 4 years old to get that slot. So waiting to get into school at 4 and to only be there for 3 hours, I mean, you're not going to be over it.
Gotcha.
It's not enough. It's definitely not enough.
It isn't. It's not enough, truly. So there's a comment. I'm just going to read part of it. And it's from Morgan Evers, and she's saying Liz can speak to this program from Leon Cares Child Care Assistance Program that's opened up in lesson requirements since August.
Yes.
So can you talk about that briefly?
Absolutely. So ELC Big Ben, we were fortunate to be recipients of $920,000 for Leon County residents. And so what this is that this program is at no cost to Leon County residents who are part of the essential workers that were part of the executive order. And that's how it initially started. Well, now that we are removing that off of the table, thanks to the blessing of the county, they said, remove that off the table. We want to serve our Leon County residents whose families need childcare between now through December at no cost to the family. Mm-hmm. So all they have to do is go to our website, the application, the information, everything is on there. And it's so simple for them to complete that, get it into our office, and then we then reimburse the childcare providers at a private pay rate. So that way the providers can also benefit from the program. So we're encouraging families to register. And if they are having difficulties figuring out how to navigate that, they can call our office and we can help them navigate through that, because we were hoping to serve 200 families starting in August. And if we had served 200 families or children starting in August through December, then we would have been able to spend all $920,000. And in fact, we were looking forward to going back to the county to say we need more. But it was what we were finding was that families were having difficulties collecting and gathering some of the supportive documentation that they would need, and so it delayed it. It delayed it, and so we have been working very, very hard with those families to try to get the documentation in, because the money is there. The county said it is here. We understand there is a need to help with childcare during these very difficult times, and so this program is available. So I'm encouraging Leon County residents who need childcare to register for the program. So thank you, Morgan.
Awesome. What's the phone number, Liz?
385-0504. Or they can visit our website at www.elcbigbend.org.
Okay, I'm gonna put that up on the screen real quick.
Thank you.
Good deal. You're welcome. All right, so we have Ginny. I think she's moved from the car to the house. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
All right. So I'm gonna circle back to the 4,000 student number. What are some partnership opportunities to help, bridge that gap?
I know that ELC has many opportunities. I'm sure that Liz will speak to that. Recently, we kind of launched an early learning Leon advisory committee. And so through Leon County Schools, we really are committed to the partnerships with our private providers. And so, we welcome any private provider to join us in any professional development opportunities to help mitigate some of those staff issues, or really raising the quality of programming. And then in addition to that, we've opened kind of a sharing room over at Wesson, because we realize that, equipping those physical spaces with appropriate, developmentally appropriate, child-friendly furniture, that's expensive and difficult to do. And so we've kind of created a sharing room over at Wesson, where we house some of those furniture items that private providers might want to access, as well as we just recently purchased a new curriculum, but our previous curriculum had, tons of great books and teachers' editions that are still very viable and relevant to the instruction of our kids. So those are just a few of the partnering relationships that we offer to our private providers through Leon County Schools.
Okay. Could you provide any information about how people can get involved, or who do they contact?
Yeah, sure. So anybody is invited to attend our Early Learning Leon meetings. We do have a body of voting members, but we meet the first Wednesday of every month. Okay. And a huge thanks to Holly McPhail with Winwood Communications. She has opened up a website for us that will be live very, very soon. earlylearning.com and earlylearningleon.com. And so that's an easy way to find out how to join those meetings and to be a part of them. And two, it helps to bridge the gap between some of our private providers and the public school system. Like I said, we really do want to create a really strong partnership.
Nice. All right, so Anna McCoy, Darrel, is this, she's giving a shout out to Capital Area and putting the contact information. So as a partner, thank you so much, Anna, for doing that. All right, so Holly says the work happening through Early Learning Leon is going to truly help parents navigate what to expect from early childhood education. Yes, awesome. Ooh, so let's kind of transition a little bit to the Children's Services Council, because I think definitely the need has been talked about in this first half. But let's talk about what the potential assistance is as it relates to the council. So Ginny, if you would give us just a brief synopsis of what the council kind of does and what it could potentially do.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So a Children's Services Council is a revenue mechanism. It's an investment tool that the community puts together to put money into children and family services. And depending on what priorities the council chooses, that's where the bulk of that money will go. It's a 10-person council. And it's all local people. 4 of them are local elected officials. 1 is a DCF appointed official. And then 5 are community members selected by the county commission and then nominated by the governor, or appointed by the governor from that list from the county commission. And they're all local folks. And so, and all of the money will be spent locally. Let's say, based on, and we've had a planning committee that's been operating for about 18 months to look at how a CSC would get going, what our priorities are and what our priorities ought to be. And I see Holly has put the website for our campaign on the screen. So thank you so much, Holly. But what we found in that planning committee is that early learning is a real area where we should make improvements, where we want to make strides for our community. And so to answer your question specifically, what are some specific things that a council can do? I'll use some examples from other communities. One area or example is sort of a booster program for the ELC School Readiness Program. Okay. So that is free childcare for parents who earn XYZ dollars less than the poverty rate or are work in school full time. Okay. But there's a window of working parents who, if you make too much money, you don't qualify anymore for school readiness funds. Okay. But I think all of us would agree the cost of childcare, if you're making just the bare minimum, many of these people are working for minimum wage or working cashier jobs or food and restaurant type jobs. They cannot afford, without school readiness help, they cannot afford childcare. And so what a CSC has done, and I think it was Broward County who did this one, they did a booster program for the school readiness program. So the state legislature says school readiness funds will cover XYZ families. And then the county said, well, y'all can pay for XYZ counties, families, we're gonna add ABC and XYZ. So they added to the number and category of families who were eligible for that kind of free childcare. So that's one thing, one example, and that's fairly low-hanging fruit in some way because there's already a program there, there's already a system there, and it's not so hard to implement that. And it's been shown, obviously, I think everyone agrees the ELC School Readiness Program is just a really strong, successful, slam dunk win, of a program in a community. And so boosting that, I think, is a real win. Another example, it's a little bit tangentially related, but it is in one of the communities they were dealing with infant mortality, and really it was driven by infant mortality. That's where the program started. But what they realized was they implemented a program of home visitation for these families. And what they found was infant mortality went down. So that's good. They meant to do that. But again, there were these knock-on benefits that happened where there were lower rates of child abuse and neglect referrals happening in those households. And one of the data points that was really interesting was the children, because the social worker doing the home visitation was plugged in to the social services of the community. And so generally she was able to not just check the baby's weight, make sure there were diapers and formula in the house, but she was also saying, hey, what are you doing about housing? Hey, what are you doing about formula? Hey, are you signed up for the WIC program? Are you signed up for this and that program? And so what they found was having that social worker visit those families in their homes. They plugged those families in at the get-go before problems became urgent, like before the problems became crises.
Right.
So there were all of these knock-on effects where more of those children qualified for school readiness funds, more of those children qualified for WIC and other federal programs, and more of the families got health insurance. And so as a result, they were in the system. And so people were watching them, and the pediatricians were watching them and keeping an eye on, were they thriving? Were they progressing? And so that's the kind of thing that, again, it was sort of an accidental benefit, because what they started doing was focusing on babies, infant mortality. But what they found was, by doing that, more of those babies ended up in quality childcare centers, which, again, has all these knock-on effects. So those are just two examples. And then the third would be the example I gave earlier about helping childcare centers get accreditation so that they are eligible for more funding, and so that they have higher staff or lower staff turnover.
Okay, thank you. That's a tremendous, the example of the infant mortality one, that really kind of strikes me, because I have had the mindset that, sometimes people need some extensive case management. And to me, it sounds like that's kind of exactly what this does. It really helps plug folks into not just the one thing, but kind of wraparound services. Because, holistically, we have a lot of things going on in our lives, and we need a lot of help. Some people more so than others. So I think, like that idea.
I think our other speakers would agree. My impression as an outsider looking in, as a non-expert, is that each of them are related to funding streams from either the federal government or the state government that come with huge restrictions, tons of rules and paperwork and accounting and reporting requirements. And every single one of those requirements is an obstacle to serving, to doing exactly what you want to do for exactly that family at exactly that moment. And so that's one of the things that a CSC offers, is some flexibility to say, we're not subject to federal funding requirements. We're not subject to all these other rules. We're not stuck with all those rules. Who needs help, and what do they need? And so that's the kind of local driven opportunity that I think can really leverage what Brooke and Liz and Daryl are already doing, because they're boots on the ground already doing the work, but their hands are tied in certain circumstances.
So what do you say to the folks that say that, this, pot of money is just going to be a slush fund for, this specific group to do whatever it is they want to do with these funds? And, I'm not willing to give my either $25 or $50 a year via a $500,000 in a mill, MIL, not million, but mill, from the property taxes. I'm not willing to give my $25 or $50, 25 if you are homestead tax exempt, and 50 if you are not, towards, these millions of dollars over a 10 or 12-year period. What do you say to that?
Well, I say, boo. No, I'm kidding. I say that sometimes we've got to try, and I would rather have some faith and some hope in our neighbors and in our community, and work together for our common good. I just can't, in good conscience, give up and quit on our kids. I think that's not acceptable. It's not an okay answer. And unless and I have not heard from anybody, any other idea that's going to generate new money and new opportunities for these children. So if anybody has a better idea, I'd love to hear it. We spent 2 years studying it and trying to find any better idea, and we didn't find any. And we really found that this tool, this model, has been really successful in other counties. And so we're excited about that. And the other thing is, even if I had a really great conversation with a much older crowd, and one of the questions was, I don't have any kids. My kids are grown. My grandkids are grown. Why do I care about your kids? And the conversation was phenomenal because an older gentleman spoke up and said, first of all of these children are our children. And that part I really agree with. That really resonated. But the other thing he said, from a very selfish perspective, as an older person in the community, it will even benefit those without children, because we will, in time, this isn't going to happen in the first 6 months. This is going to take a while, but we're going to be graduating better educated high school graduates and college graduates, more graduates as opposed to high school dropouts. So that creates a stronger workforce here in our community, which supports economic and business development in our community. So that's the first benefit. And second, even more immediate than that, if our kids are in school in productive relationships with their schools, and in after-school mentoring programs and after-school intervention programs, well, guess what they're not doing? They're not committing crimes on the street. And so it is also, for the scared older couple who's in the suburban neighborhood who worries about crime, this is a very good way to drive down crime rates among juveniles in our community. And I think it was Broward County who did that. They had one of the highest juvenile crime rates in the state. And then since their CSC began investing in at-risk youth interventions, they've really dropped that number. And then we also had a speaker from St. Lucie County who talked about dropping their gun violence incidents among juveniles after the CSC invested in it. And so there are benefits even for those who don't have kids in their houses and who aren't particularly invested in these particular children or this particular cohort of kids. There are benefits for all of our community, I think.
Okay, very good. Wow. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about the opposition's concern. They have some trust issues, about accountability and that sort of thing. And so, I did want to address it because, I understand it's a real concern. Mm-hmm. But, this council will be made up of appointed officials, right? Because we got superintendent, school board member, I think county commissioner, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Somebody from DJJ, DCF, and then 5 citizens are appointed, but that list comes from the county. Mm-hmm. The governor selects. And from what I understand, they can do an additional 5. Is that correct? Up to 15?
That's not correct.
That's not correct. Okay, so just 10. Mm-hmm. But this is a volunteer committee, mm-hmm. right? Nobody gets paid. There will be an administrator that oversees things, but that person will be, salary, right? Mm-hmm. And this will go for about, what is it, 10 to 12 or?
The county commission, when they put it on the ballot, set it up that it has to be automatically renewed, at least every 12 years. Okay. But anytime between now and 12 years from now, 2032, the county commission can put it back on the ballot if the county is unhappy with how the council is operating.
Okay.
And, Nicole, on the trust and accountability piece, I think I have 2 comments. First, council itself has built into the process the same accountability and credibility and transparency requirements that the city and the county and the school board have. Mm-hmm. So if you can follow the money for the city and the county and the school board, then you can similarly follow the money for the CSC. And it's got all the government in the sunshine, public meeting, public records, all of that all of those rules and requirements, conflicts of interest, nobody's brother or sister is going to get money, or husband or wife or anything. All of those regular old rules apply, and will govern the council's work. And so I think that's important to recognize, and to sort of set the field. But secondly, I do think our community, I have learned, I think, since my husband was elected mayor, there are a lot of folks who feel that there are the haves and the have-nots. There's the have power and don't have power. There are the have money and don't have money. There's a real divide in our community. And so I think my personal view is, when this council is established, we need to make very sure that we have a diversity of voices on that council. Because I think it's going to be very important that that council is funding and supporting and building up existing nonprofits who are already boots on the ground. Because one of the things I've learned in this process is we have a lot of institutional nonprofits who regularly get the same amount of money every year from the United Way or the city. It's called the CHSP, Community Human Services Partnership. And because they know the process and they know the rules and they know how it works. And so they successfully navigate that system every year. But there are also a lot of organizations who are doing great work. There's a group of African-American grannies operating out of a church that I learned about, who are having a phenomenal, really effective mentoring program. And they're doing it with some brownies and some tough love. I don't think they would know an Excel spreadsheet if you hit them in the head with it. And so they've never even applied for United Way money, but they are a perfect candidate for that kind of funding. And I would love to see the CSC empower some of those existing organizations who already have the relationships on the ground, who already have the credibility in their community, who've already done that kind of work, and empower them to scale up, right? To take it to the next level, hire an accountant, hire a bookkeeper who can do the Excel stuff and start applying for United Way funding and growing the program. So I really am hopeful for the CSC, because I think it creates a new opportunity to bring those new voices, but also existing service providers into the mix.
Okay, very good. So Janae wants to know, how would they select which organizations would benefit from the CSC?
That's a great question. The way it works in all of the other counties is that it's a competitive procurement process. It's sort of a 3-step process. Step 1 is the council performs a needs assessment and says, what are the top needs of the community? And some counties pick 1 priority, some pick 3 priorities. So I don't know what our council will pick, if we're going to pick 1 or 2 or 3 priorities. I personally hope it won't be more than 3, because I like to really focus in and move the needle on what our priorities are. But that's step 1, is they pick the priorities. Step 2 is they then say to the community, here are our priorities. Now we're going to accept applications for funding programs to achieve these goals. Okay. So for example, if our council decides that low birth weight babies or infant mortality will be one of our top priorities, then they would be looking for programs that either directly or indirectly, because sometimes you have those knock-on effects like I talked about, directly or indirectly hit that target and can move that number in the right direction. And then the third step is, so you go through that's a competitive process where everyone applies and sort of is competing to this council to say, our program is the best program, you should pick us for the funding. And then the third process is, once the council awards the money, then the people who get the money, the providers, have to then report back on a regular basis to show that to demonstrate that they're achieving the performance that they said they would. So it's very similar to any other government process, really.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know. All right. Well, this has been quite the conversation with a great panel that has really definitely given us a good overview of the early learning landscape here in Leon County. I'm going to allow you all to provide some final comments, but we got Miss Rita Brown on here of Brownsville, so I'm going to take her question. Ms. Brown wants to know, are they going to use a third-party organization like United Way to vet the organizations they want to start programming?
So that's a great question. Hi, Rita. It's good to see you or hear from you anyway. The answer is it depends on what the council decides. What we found in this planning committee is that different counties do that process differently. Some of them do it with a national accrediting body of nonprofits and charities, like Charity Navigator, or I don't remember the names of those. Some of them do it with a third-party local group, like a United Way or something like that. Okay. And some counties do it with their own internal staff and their internal council members, and they themselves do the vetting. So I don't know which way I don't know which choice the council will select once they get established. There are a couple of different ways they could do it.
Right. Okay. Good deal. All right. Well, we'll start in the order in which which I introduced you all. So, Brooke, any closing comments?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me participate this evening. I would leave you with Leon County. We know that we have areas for improvement with early child care. And so my question is, what are we going to do about it? And the Children's Services Council is an opportunity for us to do something about it. It's an opportunity for us to change our community. It's an opportunity for us to impact our children. And so I just want to encourage everyone to get out there and vote and know that we really have a call to action with our children.
Okay. Brooke, are there any wish lists is there a wish list, if you will, for Leon County's early learning program?
I want to see more children, more families involved in early learning opportunities. Liz talked about barriers to families accessing that. It's not always easy. And then you heard Ginny talk about, we through this Children's Service Council, we have the ability to target the needs of our community. And so we get to decide what is the most important to us. And so, being the director of early childhood programs, the earlier the better, right? It starts with prenatal care, but we have to carry it through all the way up until the start of kindergarten. And so we really have a responsibility to do that within our community.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Mr. James?
Thanks for having me. It was great being with such a great panel, and you yourself, Nicole. I would just like to end by saying I'm in support of the council, anything for children, and to help close the gap between all neighborhoods and all economic status. I am in support of that. Help our children be better, our children and families be better. And also my staff member, my right hand, I have to give her a shout out. She reminded me to put it out there that we're still accepting children at Head Start. She put the information into the screen. We're not full in our Leon County Center, so we really want to see more children, more families bringing their children out to be a part of the program. We're accepting children at our South City location, at our Mabry location, and at our Louis B. Royal location. The number is on the screen. Please contact us. Don't be scared saying you may make too much money. At this point, we are trying to help families be school ready. So please give us a call. The number is on the screen. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daryl. Appreciate that. And Ms. Liz?
Well, it has certainly been a pleasure to be among you guys. You know, for every panel that I have sat through so far, you know, it is very clear to me that everyone they understand the importance of investing in our youth and our and it starts at birth. So I want to remind parents that you're your child's first teacher. So take advantage of that. Read to your children. They are learning from you before they even get to us. And I want to continue to give shout outs to our childcare professionals because I am so proud of the work that they do every single day. I want to mention that during the pandemic, while we did see, you know, some movement with closures and all of that. To date, I want to report that we only have 5 childcare centers that remain closed. The rest of them are open. So when families are ready to and feel safe to take their children back to childcare, our providers are ready for you. We are here to serve our communities the best that we can. I have seen the difference that a Children's Services Council has done in other communities. So I'm excited to see what happens in our community. We are here to serve you in whatever way that we can. My staff, the great staff from ELC are the ones that are on the front line doing the work. So if you can't get a hold of me, you can definitely get a hold of them much quicker than getting a hold of me. But we're here to serve. Ultimately, we want our children to be ready by the time they get into school. And so that's our desire, that's our passion, and that's what we get up every day and we do, because our children from today are going to be our future leaders.
All right.
So it
Awesome.
does matter.
Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Miss Ginny Dailey, our First Lady. So tell me, any closing remarks and what's your wish list?
Thank you so much. So I would say my wish for the community is that everybody votes yes for the Children's Services Council. And let's take this step together for our children, and let's see what we can do. This is not a silver bullet. This is not a magic wand. We're not going to fix everything for everybody tomorrow, but we can try to start, and we can make a start. And so I hope everyone will commit to that. This is real simple, but I just hope everybody votes. It's so important, and the numbers in Leon County are not very high yet. So our people need to get out there and turn their ballots in. Because we're the capital county, and we gotta show the rest of the state that we know what's going on. So I really hope our voters will turn out. And I would say I hope conversations like this continue, because I'm a guest here, y'all. I'm a visitor in this space. I am not an expert. I have learned a lot. I speak some of the vocabulary that y'all are talking about, Healthy Start and Head Start and school readiness and whatever, but that's only because I've spent some time really learning about it. And so we've really got to get the message out to moms and dads, because those are the ones who need it. So thank you so much, Nicole, for this conversation. Sorry about the dog.
It's okay. Thank you all. And thank you to our viewers who have commented and contributed to this conversation. Let's keep this conversation going. Please like and share this post with others. Folks that need to get more information about this in order to make an informed decision. Please let them know that this conversation exists. And if they need more information, is it Our First Kids?
It's ourkidsfirst-leon.com.
Okay, ourkidsfirst-leon.com. They can go there to get more information about the CSC. And again, the information for capital area and ELC has been placed on the screen or in the comments, so you can refer back to that. So again, thank you all. I really appreciate it. Again, vote, 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 vote. Go vote. And we will see y'all next time on Conversations with Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.